C+.
Solar stocks sustained a significant amount of damage yesterday in the wake of the news of the Senate bill, which does take away some energy incentives, tax credits, eases some emissions rules, getting back a little bit today, but not a lot, in a fairly flat tape. S&P is up 12. Squawk on the Street continues after a short break.
Good morning, everyone. Is the audio coming through? There's no audio today. Hello? Okay. So I'm done trading for the day. It's FOMC day. Just wanted to take trades in the morning. So I got I took profits here on the downside, and then I went in a little too early. This candle was actually bottoming tail, so I got in. But I knew there was going to be some support around this area here. So I started getting in heavy, and I just got out. Small loss, and then I just reversed with these two bottoming tails. So as you saw, let's see the fills. Here it is. So this was a profitable one. Then I got in here, lost. I started adding. I started getting out, and then I got in here, added. I started getting out. One by one, adding, getting out. So once I saw this bar gets taken out, I added here, I think 3 contracts or so. So then I want to get out at this moving average. There's only 15 points or so. But then once this tail gets taken out, and again I got out here at the moving averages and right over here, close to this moving average. That's pretty much it for my trading. So 1K FOMC day. I will be going live for the FOMC announcement and news speech by Jerome Powell. I think the forecast is to leave the rates alone, but anything can happen, right? You can surprise everybody by cutting or raising rates. look here. Yeah. So now we're probably going to be chopping, going sideways or so, all day until the announcement. That's why I'm not surprised by this V bottom, down and up. I mean, for a move like this to get erased completely is not normal. That's all I want to say about that. But now, once we are above the moving averages, um, the only thing is on the New York Open charts, we have the moving averages declining. So we are kind of stuck between this and this. So I think that's why we're going to be going sideways back and forth. Maybe reach this 200 and bounce back down. So that's what I think is going to happen for the day. Don't take this as advice. Just trade what you see. And looks like we're pulling back again. So, like I said, we might be chopping all day today. So, see what he's saying.
Nutrient on this one. Great advice. But he's done a poor job. So we have no inflation. We have only success. And I'd like to see interest rates get down. Now, Biden did a lot of very short-term debt. So we have short-term debt coming due. And because of this guy's rates, you know, if he'd lowered a point, I'd pay about a point less. Then if he'd lowered 2 points, I'd pay about 2 points less. And that's for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 5 years. It's hundreds of billions. It's even trillions of dollars that we're going to lose because of this too late. I call him Too Late Powell because he's always too late. I mean, if you look at him, every time I did this, I was right 100%. He was wrong. Maybe I should go to the Fed. Am I allowed to appoint myself, Doug? I don't know. Am I allowed to appoint myself at the Fed? I do a much better job than these people. So anyway, we should be 2 points lower. It'd be nice to be 2.5 points lower. We'd be saving $800 billion, $700 billion. That's a lot of money. Think of it, for nothing, for absolutely nothing. We'd save $600, $700, $800 billion. We have, I think we're 38th now in interest, and we should be number one. We should be the lowest. But, and by the way, if he's worried about inflation, that's okay. I understand that. I don't think there's going to be any. So far, there hasn't. I mean, we have almost no inflation. We've done a great job. We had, when I came in, we had a lot of inflation. We went through 4 years of the highest inflation in the history of our country with Sleepy Joe Biden. And Sleepy Joe. And he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And so we had the highest inflation we've ever had in the history of our country. And then it came down because when I got elected, it started dropping because people understood that I knew what I was doing. But now we have a man that just refuses to lower the Fed rate, just refuses to do it. And he's not a smart person. I don't even think he's that political. I think he hates me, but that's okay. You know, he should. He should. I call him every name in the book, trying to get him to do something. I've been nice to him. I do it always. I don't know how to sell. I've been so nice to him, fellas, you wouldn't believe. Let's have dinner. Too late. I call him too late. Come on, too late. Let's have dinner. I do it every way in the book. I'm nasty. I'm nice. Nothing works. He's like just a stupid person. But I don't expect anything. Maybe he does a little bit, but we should be 2.5 points. Remember, Europe had 10 cuts. We had none. We're paying more rate, more interest than a lot of European nations that can't carry our suitcase. I'm going to be nice. There's another expression. You know what the other expression, can't carry your, you know what it is, but I shouldn't use it in front of the fake news. So it's very sad to see it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go very short term, like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. Wait till this guy gets out, get the rates way down, and then go long term. Because we have a tremendous appetite for our debt, because our country is doing well. But think of it, I got a call from Congress 3 nights ago. Sir, we can't account for the money coming in. I said, that's a good problem. You know, the bad problem is we don't have any money. They can't account. There's so much more money than we thought is coming into the Treasury. We don't know where it's coming from, sir. I said, check out the tariffs. He calls back about a day later. Wow. I think you were right. Yeah, I was right. That's nothing. You haven't seen anything yet. More importantly than the money coming in, we have factories being built, AI, auto factories. 2 of them stopped yesterday in Mexico, you read. And they're coming here because they don't want to pay the tariffs. They can't pay the tariffs. It doesn't work. So I just want to wish you a lot of luck with the new flagpole. We have 2 of them. And we're going to do this one now, then we're going to do the other one. 11 o'clock or so, we're going to have a flag raising, which will be great. And I got to get these guys back to work. They're making a fortune. They're standing around making a fortune. But remember this, somewhere in this group, there's somebody that is going to captivate some movie producer. Not Harvey Weinstein, but Harvey's seen a better day. So it won't be Harvey, but it'll be somebody. And they'll say, that guy is perfect for a movie. And you're going to become a star, and your friends are going to call you, and you won't even return their phone call anymore. You know? He said, "What do you do for a living?" I put up flagpoles. I'm not even going to talk to you. I'm a big movie star. So some way you have that. Anyway, let's have a good. They call it a lifting. They also use another word, but I'm not going to use that word. You know what that is? The word, it starts with an E. You know what the word is? If I ever used it, I'd be run out of town by you people. All right, so enjoy it. Doc, you're going to get some good. He's going to win another Nobel Prize, I think, for this picture. So maybe the flag will be even more exciting, but this is pretty exciting. That's some equipment, I'll tell you what. Look at that crane. That's some beautiful equipment. It's, there's nothing like America. Have a good time, everybody.
Mr. President, have you given answered questions about whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities? Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question. Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine. You would have had a country. It's very sad to watch this. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's so, you know, everyone thought it was going to be the reverse. I didn't think so. And I was telling them, you gotta do something. You gotta negotiate. And at the end, last minute, they said, no, we're not going to do that, and they got hit. Remember 60 days, and then came the 60. 61 is going to become a very famous number. That was one hell of a hit. That first hit, that was one hell of a hit. Not sustainable, to be honest. That's where it ended. It ended on the first night. Yes.
Is it too late, though? Do you think it's too late to now?
Not really. Nothing's too late. The only thing too late is Powell. Powell's too late. Too late, Powell.
Have the Iranians reached out to you, Mr. President?
What?
Have the Iranians reached out to you?
Yes.
And what did they say?
I said it's very late. You know? I said it's very late to be talking.
Mr. President,
We may meet. It's. I don't know. There's a big difference between now and a week ago, right? Big
Mr.
difference.
President, you said you just about said we may meet. Is this about Vance and Witkoff possibly going to talk about?
It's about anybody. They even suggested they come to the White House. It's a big difference. But they've suggested that they come to the White House. That's, you know, courageous, but, you know, it's like not easy for them to do. But they suggested, because I can't go now because of what's going on. I had to come back early from the G7, which was terrific, by the way, in Canada. Really terrific. Good people.
Is there a possibility of next week or sooner that you're
Well, I don't know how much longer it's going to go on. They're totally defenseless. They have no air defense whatsoever. We've totally captured. You know, we've totally captured the air, Brian.
Mr. President, you've been fairly compassionate towards the Iranian people.
I have been. It's human. The human beings. I know a lot of people from Iran, from New York, from Washington, mostly from New York. They're incredible people. They're smart. They're energetic. They can be difficult, but so can you. You know, no, they're great people. They're smart people. And those people are getting the hell beat out of them now. And it's really a shame. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. This is another one. You know, Russia, Ukraine is so stupid. Would have never happened if I was president. You guys agree with that, right? Would have never happened if I was president. Putin would have never done it. And I spoke to him yesterday, and I said, you know, he actually offered to help mediate. I said, do me a favor. Mediate your own. Let's mediate Russia first, okay? I said, Vladimir, let's mediate Russia first. You can worry about this later. But I think that's going to work out too, but it's so many people have been killed. The big thing with that one is far more people are dead than have been reported in the Ukraine, Russia. Many, many more people.
Mr.
A building
President,
falls down, they say nobody was hurt. You know, so.
What does unconditional surrender mean?
Well, you know what it means. Unconditional
Can you
surrender.
explain it for
Two
those who
very simple
don't?
words. Very simple. Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the, all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place there. No, they had bad intentions. You know, for 40 years they've been saying death to America, death to Israel, death to anybody else that they didn't like. They were bullies. They were schoolyard bullies. And now they're not bullies anymore, but we'll see what happens. Look, nothing's finished until it's finished. You know, war is very complex. A lot of bad things can happen. A lot of turns are made. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that we won anything yet. I would say that we sure as hell made a lot of progress. And we'll see. The next week is going to be very big. Maybe less than a week. Maybe less. But is there anybody here that said it would be okay to have a hostile, very, zealots really, but to have a hostile country have a nuclear weapon that could destroy 25 miles, but much more than that, could destroy other nations just by the breeze blowing the dust. You know, that dust blows to other nations and they get decimated. This is just not a threat you can have. And we've been threatened by Iran for many years. You know, if you go back and look at my history, if you go back 15 years, I was saying we cannot let Iran get a nuclear weapon. I've been saying it for a long time. And I mean it more now than I ever meant it. Yeah.
Mr. President, a question on deportations. Mr. President, you said last week that changes would be coming for farmers who have seen a lot of the workers they rely on taken away. But then DHS said this week that worksite enforcement would remain in place, that it's a cornerstone. So what's your message to farmers?
Everybody's right. Look, we got to
Created in 1980
first, and we're doing that. We're taking them out by the thousands. Murderers, drug dealers, people that are mentally insane from insane asylums. What they gave to us, fellas, they gave. Oh, do we have anybody in here that's a member of the so you've known all these people for a long time? Any illegal immigrants? Anything else? If they would, they'll find out.
Right?
They'll be checking you. You won't believe it. Your whole life will be destroyed because of this press conference. Watch. They'll destroy these people. I didn't want to tell them that before this did happen. They'll end up being, he's a so-and-so. This one is from you know where. Don't worry. I think you're going to be okay. I'll be right behind you. Far behind you. I'll be right behind you. Now look, we have to take care of our farmers. We have to take care of people that run leisure, hotels. I mean, we have to take care of them. But most importantly, we have to get the criminals out of our country. And Biden let in thousands and 11,888 murderers. Many of them murdered more than one person. Can you believe it? Many, almost 50% of them murdered more than one person. He let them into our country. They emptied out the jails of countries from all over the world, from the Congo, from Venezuela, from all over the place. They emptied out the jails, many of them. I would. If I were running one of the countries, I would have emptied out my prison population into the U.S., and many countries did. And we're getting them out, okay? We're getting them out. Thank you very much. Let's watch this. Brian, go ahead. Are you okay?
I'm going to follow up on the immigration real quickly.
Yeah.
Can you comment on the impact of the Trump card?
Someone told me.
Yeah, we have a thing called the Trump card. This has not been done before or thought of. And for $5 million, this is usually people that would either be working for companies like Apple, I think is going to buy a lot of them, because they can't get people into the country. You know, if you come in through the southern border, you have no problem. You can be a criminal, you can be a drug dealer, you have no problem. But if you go and graduate number one in your class from a great school, you can't get a job because there's no access to getting it. You can't get a green card. So we're going to sell that to people, in some cases wealthy, in some cases not wealthy. They'll be paid for by universities. Look at Harvard. They got $53 billion. That whole thing is coming to an end. It's amazing what we found out. What a disgrace. They have $53 billion. We gave them 5, 6, and some people say it's as much as...
In everything I've seen, in all the other...
So that's very much coming to it. They want to make a deal more than, I would say Harvard wants to make a deal more than Iran wants to make a deal, and Iran wants to make a deal. I mean, a lot of things.
President Donald Trump outside the White House, standing with the folks that are the workers that are there to put in place the 2 new flagpoles that he is donating to the White House. There's going to be a flag raising ceremony at 11 a.m. But really taking questions from reporters on a number of issues, from Iran to immigration, as far as what investors are paying attention to there. First of all, on Iran, what he said, I mean, he didn't give much in terms of whether the U.S. would intervene more aggressively, militarily. He said that they have reached out to talk. He said it was too late on the talks, but still sort of left the open question of whether there could be some sort of negotiation. Said that he may strike, he may not strike. He's got to make that decision, and obviously wouldn't give any answers on that front. As far as too late, he really went after Fed Chair Jay Powell, just piled on ahead of the Fed chair this afternoon out with the rate decision and his news conference. President Trump reiterated his call, sort of doubled and tripled down on his call for the Fed to be lowering interest rates. This time he said, David, that they should lower by 2.5 points, which is ridiculous, and
250 basis points is what he's saying.
Exactly.
2.5, yeah,
so
percentage
like a little
points.
25
Yeah.
basis point cut wouldn't even be enough for him. By the way, the Fed is not scheduled to cut at all today because the Fed is still worried about tariff inflation materializing, and so they've been very much on hold. And the message we're expected to get out of the Fed is we are going to remain patient and on hold to see what happens with inflation and with jobs. The president's point is that it would save the U.S. a lot of money on interest rate payments to pay off the debt, which is costing, $1 trillion per year. He's not wrong about that fact. But again, the Fed has other considerations, namely its dual mandate, which is to keep inflation in check and job growth.
Yeah, there's also no guarantee that longer-term paper would get any less expensive if the Fed cut at the short end. By the way, Jay Powell, appointed by Donald Trump back in the day.
Well, he kind of went after his former Treasury Secretary, Mnuchin,
He
for
did,
that.
begin his remarks by saying Mnuchin didn't do a good job on that
Give
one.
me good advice on that.
And clearly made it clear as he has before he doesn't like Powell, although he said he's tried both sides.
Nice.
Tried to be nice,
Invited him to
nasty,
dinner.
nothing works.
He called him a stupid person. He also suggested, and we'll just lay this one to rest, can I be the head of the Fed? I would be very good at the head of the Fed. So the answer is no, right? The president appoints the chairman of the Fed, who is a member of the Board of Governors. It has to be appointed by the Senate for a 4-year term. I mean, as head of it's pretty constitutionally and statutorily separate. The president of the United States and the chair of the Federal Reserve. We'll just say that. Richard Haass, Counsel on Foreign Relations, President Emeritus and Centerview Partners Senior Counselor, also joins us now. Richard has served as former Director of Policy Planning for the Department of State from 2001 to 2003. Richard, we're wondering what your take is on Iran and whether you can read anything into the president's recent statements, whether it's on social media or just now, about what the U.S. does next.
Short answer is no, but he has a big decision to make. Quite honestly, either way, it's consequential, even fateful. Whether he, is prepared to use military force, my own recommendation is that he would explicitly give Iran one last time-limited opportunity to make a deal, and the deal would have, be quite demanding of Iran in the nuclear domain, but it would give Iran relief from sanctions. Obviously, the regime would survive. It would bring about a ceasefire more broadly. So I would hope that the Iranians might find that attractive. But if not, I do think there's a case for the United States using force to diminish an important, probably the most important remaining facility in the Iranian nuclear program.
So you see a realistic scenario where the current regime, the Ayatollah regime, can stay in place and Iran cannot be a nuclear threat?
Absolutely. Look, Iran has made big decisions before. The previous Ayatollah, the first Ayatollah, made the decision to end the Iran-Iraq war, as difficult as that was for him. He compared it to drinking poison. If you're the leader of a country and your country's survival is at stake, you have to be prepared to make difficult decisions. But absolutely, I would think that regime change is a more likely scenario if the military situation continues than it is if there's some kind of an outcome, particularly if the outcome brings economic benefits to Iran.
Richard, what, for those who are hoping and believe that perhaps regime change is a real possibility, what would that even look like? Is there an opposition party? Are there leaders that conceivably could fill a vacuum to actually take over?
Let me say one or two things. Regime change is a wish. It's not a strategy. You can't go to a military leader and say, build an operation and carry it out that brings me regime change. You can't use military force with any confidence to do that. So one, it's a long shot. Two, if it were to happen, you're right. You don't know what it brings. There's no organized opposition within Iran. It could bring about some type of a military leader, an intelligence leader, somebody else who's strong in the religious, political.
Too bad. Frozen shot. We'll work on getting Richard back up there. But that is one of the important questions. Remember, Aaron David Miller, who is also an expert, told us yesterday that it was a pretty fragmented opposition situation there. Richard, sorry we lost you there for a moment. You were saying the likelihood that there is some sort of opposition takeover. Richard?
Yes, I'm here. I hear you fine.
Okay. Okay. So what were you saying about the likelihood of that kind of scenario?
Well, again, the regime change it's a wish. It's not a strategy. You can't count on it. You don't know what would follow, even if you had regime ouster. So I just don't think either Israel or the United States could or should make regime change central to what it is they do. Going after the nuclear capabilities, that's a legitimate, to some extent, achievable option if the United States gets involved. Regime change, again, I would put off to the side.
Okay, Richard, we appreciate you joining us today, fresh off those comments from the president as we try to figure out what's next in this evolving conflict.
Let's get to the Fed this morning. Our next guest does expect a rate cut to come in September. Joining us this morning to discuss is Evercore ISI Vice Chair Krishna Guha. Krishna, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Great to see you.
Doesn't sound like you expect any change today, even on the dots, but what kind of soft guidance do you think he might give about the fall?
Look, I think that the Fed's going to stay very much in wait-and-see mode today. Now, we've had some interesting data come in, right? The top-tier data for May, pretty reassuring, right? The labor market, unemployment, payroll gains, still looking pretty solid. An inflation report that was good, surprisingly didn't show inflation pressures from tariffs, even in goods. So far, so good, but as you guys know, housing starts, the wider retail sales, some softness here and there.
Welcome back.
And I think the real point, as far as the Fed's concerned, is it's just very early days. And they think they're going to learn a lot more from the data over June, July, August. And going into what they're teeing up as that decision point, go, no go, in September. So I think that's going to really be the main thrust of the meeting today. I think the key Fed leadership figures will continue to signal a two-cut baseline. The median is close to a coin toss. Could have a couple of individual policymakers defect from 2 to 1. My hunch is it'll stay 10-9 in favor of 2 cuts. Could be 9-10 the other way. But I think Powell will look at this and say, look, you can see from this close division between Fed officials as to what they think might be appropriate, but it really is going to depend on how the data evolves.
I know you can't read too much into what the president is calling for Chair Powell to do, which now is 250 basis points of cuts, 2.5 points. However, his term is up next year, and the president appoints the next Fed chair. So are we looking at a scenario next year where there might be probably less pushback, more independence, and a lot more rate cutting?
So certainly, you're already seeing folks in the market put bets, right, on the idea of the Fed shifting more dovish after Powell's term expires in May 26. But remember, market will continue to impose a constraint on whoever Trump picks to be the next Fed chair. As one of your colleagues was saying a minute ago, right, if you do cut front-end rates by more than is appropriate, given economic conditions, given inflation pressures, what will happen is the market will start to expect more inflation. They'll start to worry that Fed independence is being eroded away, even if you don't have that dismissal issue because Trump's got his own guy in place. And that would actually put upward pressure on longer-term yields. You could end up with yields that are higher, not lower in that environment. Steeper curve, for sure.
That's like emerging market stuff that, less independence of the central bank. Is there truth though in the, he calls him too late Powell. You just laid out some of the economic downside risks and softening evidence that we're seeing, while we're also seeing softer pressure on inflation. Is there a risk that the Fed is too late when it comes to cutting?
So look, the Fed is not infallible, and there's always a risk the Fed could be late or too early. I think the key fact that isn't properly represented in the president's comments is that there are risks on both sides of the deck, right? There are downside risks relating to growth and employment, but there are upside risks relating to inflation, specifically the idea that tariff inflation might not turn out to just be a one-time thing, could start to get embedded in the underlying inflation process. So what the Fed needs to do is to exercise two-sided risk management. And right now, that, I think, reasonably calls on the Fed to stay on hold, accumulate some more information. By September, my hunch is that on a slim balance of probabilities, I think we'll have seen enough weakening in the labor market for the Fed to judge that that risk balance is best served by cutting rates to lean against a deeper weakening in the economy. But there are two-sided risks, not one-sided risks. If there were no inflation risks here, for sure, you would be cutting rates now just to take out some insurance on the labor side. Two-sided risks mean you need to stay on hold for the moment.
Right. Certainly echoes what Powell has said to date, and we'll see what we get this afternoon. Krishna, as always, our appreciation. Thank you. Krishna Guha.
Anytime. Good to see you.
Meantime, the crypto sector notching a big legislative win last night as this key stablecoin bill passes in the Senate. We'll talk about what investors need to know after a break. Of course, it is Fed decision day. The chair is set to speak in a few hours. We'll talk to former Fed Vice Chair Alan Blinder here with his predictions when we're back in a couple of minutes.
Plus. The crypto industry getting a major legislative win after the Senate passed the Genius Act last night. Mackenzie Sagalis is here at Post 9 and can give us some of the details. Mackenzie.
Hey, good morning, David. You've got Bitcoin down 4% over the past week, now trading just below $105,000. Ether has lost nearly 10% in that same stretch. The drop comes as ETF inflows cool, the dollar gains strength, and traders await today's Fed decision on interest rates, all of which are adding pressure to those risk assets. But the weakness in crypto prices comes just as the industry locks in its biggest legislative win yet. You've got the Senate passing the Genius Act, the first federal framework for stablecoins. It allows private companies to issue their own digital dollars with the government's blessing, but only under strict guardrails, full reserve backing, monthly audits, and robust anti-money laundering checks. Now, lawmakers say it protects consumers while reinforcing the dominance of the U.S. dollar. The bill now moves to the House, which has its own version dubbed the Stable Act. Both bills ban yield-bearing consumer stablecoins, but they diverge on who gets to regulate them. Now, reconciling the two could take months, especially as House Republicans weigh attaching a broader market structure package. Meanwhile, Wall Street and big tech are already making moves. You've got Amazon and Walmart reportedly looking at stablecoin-style payments, and JP Morgan saying that it plans to roll out a deposit token called JPMD. While not technically a stablecoin, it offers similar features for institutions, including 24/7 settlement and interest, all within the traditional banking system. Guys?
What's the difference between the Genius Act and the Stable Act, which has also been in the House? And I don't know, they might have to reconcile those two.
One of the big things comes down to authority. So Treasury gets a lot of broad authority over the stablecoin market with the Genius Act. And so you've got Scott Bessent weighing in last week saying that if this goes through within the next few years, the stablecoin market's going to nearly 8x up to $2 trillion. And then on the other side, the House kind of spreads out that authority among the OCC, the Fed, and other regulators. There are also different specifics, different nuances within what foreign issuers are able to do, which is really crucial because Tether, of course, foreign issuer of a U.S. dollar peg stablecoin, accounts for more than 60% of this market.
Okay, well, let's see how it progresses in the House next. Mackenzie, thank you for the rundown. Time now for a CNBC News update. Silvana Henao has it for us. Morning, Silvana.
Hey, Sarah. Good morning to you. Defense Secretary Hegseth's testifying right now before the Senate Armed Services Committee in his fourth trip to Capitol Hill this month. The hearing is supposed to focus on the Defense Department's budget request, but senators are expected to grill Hegseth over a number of topics, including the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. Meanwhile, the military says it activated another 2,000 National Guard troops in Los Angeles. That brings a total deployment to at least 4,100 troops and 700 Marines. Now, the move comes after protests against federal immigration policies in L.A. died down and after the city's mayor lifted a nighttime curfew. The military says the reinforcements are needed to support the protection of federal functions, personnel, and property. And Tropical Storm Eric is now a Category 1 hurricane. The National Hurricane Center says the Pacific storm is expected to deliver life-threatening flash floods to parts of southern Mexico tonight and tomorrow. Forecasters say Eric could become a Category 3 storm by the time it makes landfall near Acapulco, Sarah.
Okay, we'll watch it. Thank you, Silvana. Investors are waiting to hear what Fed Chair Jay Powell says in today's news conference. Former Federal Reserve Vice Chair Alan Blinder will be here to tell us what he thinks could happen, what the Fed Chair could say next. Plus, we've got a fresh read on how the consumer's holding up with the CEO of sports betting player DraftKings. Shares sitting nearly 30% off their highs. Don't go anywhere.
Centers.
I call him Too Late Pal because he's always too late. I mean, if you look at him, every time I did this, I was right 100%. He was wrong. Maybe I should go to the Fed. Am I allowed to appoint myself, Doug? I don't know. Am I allowed to appoint myself at the Fed? I do a much better job than these people.
As Sarah told us, he's not allowed to appoint himself to the Fed. Of course, that was the president a few moments ago. He was slamming Fed Chair Powell, as he's done a number of times, of course, as the Federal Reserve convenes and is expected to announce its rate policy for the rest of the year. Joining us now is our former Fed Vice Chair, Alan Blinder. Alan, good to have you. Tariffs going to be what one would imagine an important sort of focus, certainly in the press conference. Where do you stand in terms of the inflationary impact of tariffs, which we have yet to really see in any significance? Is it still coming?
I think it's still coming. I stand exactly where you are, that we haven't seen much from the tariffs yet. The tariffs have been announced, unannounced, announced, unannounced. I think at this point, nobody, certainly including me, knows where they're going to wind up. I'm talking about tariffs against our major trading partners, China, Canada, the EU. But, you know, Trump made a mistake confusing the UK with the EU, but the EU is the big, quote, country. It's not a country. But I think the markets are actually paying too little attention, not that they know what's going to happen, and neither do I, to the oil situation.
Why?
I mean, who in the world knows what's going to happen with the current strife in the Middle East? Happen to the price of oil? I mean, happen in general, we don't know. But in particular, in the narrow economic sphere, what's going to happen to the price of oil? It could be a big nothing, or it could be a very big deal. And that's a huge uncertainty, rivaling the uncertainty over tariffs, maybe even larger.
Yeah, although our viewers are looking at a chart right now, I mean, it shows that oil still was higher than this only, not that many months ago, Alan. I mean, we have dealt with far higher oil prices without having that large an impact on the economy, it would seem.
Yeah, no, it's the speed of increase. We can deal with much higher oil prices in time, but if they shoot up because, suppose they close the Straits of Hormuz and oil shoots up over $100 a barrel in a very short period of time, that's a shock to all the industrial economies. Hopefully it won't happen. But as we sit here today, who knows what's going to happen over there?
How tight is the Fed policy where it is right now?
I wouldn't call it very tight. I just saw the president on your network say Powell is so stupid he should cut interest rates 200 basis points.
250, yeah.
That suggests it's very, very tight. It's not very tight. Look, we're looking at a 2.5% inflation rate against a 4+ short-term interest rate. That's not a huge real interest rate. It's a little high, a little tight. That's where the Fed wants it, just a little bit tight. And as Powell has said ad infinitum, given the behavior of the economy, it is not sinking like a stone. It may not be sinking at all. The Fed can afford to watch and wait to see how these tariff and oil uncertainties develop.
But isn't there more evidence of the economy softening than inflation flaring?
Yeah, I don't see any evidence of inflation flaring. You have to look forward to what the tariff increases as they phase in will do to prices. We've seen very little of that up to now. And as I just mentioned, you have to worry a little bit about oil. I just said a little bit. The market's worrying a little bit. I think I would be worrying a little bit more than that about the price of oil. Hopefully it'll be okay, but we don't know.
Finally, Alan, I wonder how much you're watching housing in particular this week. That NAHB number, third lowest since 2012. Residential construction spending's negative year on year. We always say housing punches above its weight when it comes to GDP, but is that worth considering more?
Sure. I mean, look, that's one of the sectors the Fed, I remember this from my time at the Fed. This is nothing new. That's one of the sectors the Fed watches most closely. If you're working on interest rates, you're thinking about the interest sensitive sectors and those are mostly housing and automobiles. So absolutely. But don't forget, as your question suggested, housing is ballpark 4% of the total economy. New spending on new housing is what I mean. Is something like 4% of GDP. Maybe it's, I haven't looked lately to know the decimal place, but it's not like the consumer, which is closer to 70% of GDP.
Alan, thank you. As always.
Pleasure.
Alan Blinder. Don't miss, by the way, CNBC special coverage of today's Fed decision. We'll have the news conference as well, of course, from Fed Chair Powell. That kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Meantime, the CEO of DraftKings is coming up. We'll get his read on the consumer and talk about this growing regulation in the sports betting space. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy had that new warning for his workforce yesterday around AI and what it's going to mean for headcount. We'll get to those details later this hour.
I'm going to call it here for live stream. I will be going live for FOMC announcement at 11 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That's when the announcement comes. So I'm gonna go live just before that. So if you're interested, um, I'll see you in about 3 hours or so. So be careful, take care, follow your plan. They were good trades. I should have. Yeah, I knew it. It pulled back. Yeah, this was a good trade. Anyways, so I'll see you in about 3 hours for FOMC announcement. Take care.
you